darkest regions, wrapped in a cloak of light. Minus the focus heights, I'm trying to get my opens right. Throw my doubts aside, I climb the mountainside. And when I reach the peak, the view I see will not be fly. Feel the pressure, but it's relative to the man I measured. No time for hesitation, finally time to step up. And when you're feeling deep in your bones, in your zone, you're fed up. You're close to the glass ceiling, keep your head up. See your dreams as a goal, that's how I'm seeing mine. Achieve my full potential, let all of the demons pre my shine.
I hang on every word you say. Don't wanna crash and burn or drive you away. I hang on every word you say. Don't wanna crash and burn or drive you away.
Don't wanna drive you. Yes, we will work the blueprint. My philosophy is more than some long talking. It's embodied in the movement. Stepping the gears up, leaving them stuck in the rear. What? I move at 1,000,000 miles an hour. The power is fruit with the fearless. Them gems are serious. I handle my business imperious. Yo, I'm a fireman, some flames are more deleterious. Sent from the most high and anointed with oils various. And come bring is scariest. Emotion stoic, I'm airy then. Now it's time to roll. I chant the Gideon's chant and keep the most high close to my heart, and then I go.
I hang on every word you say. Don't wanna crash and burn or drive you
2 weeks ago, the INDYCAR iRacing Challenge kicked off at the famed Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, where Alex Palou scored a popular victory. Last week, it was Sage Karam stretching his fuel mileage to win at the 1.5-mile Homestead Miami Speedway Oval. And today, the series comes to its exciting conclusion at the legendary Sebring International Raceway. Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Marine from the INDYCAR Radio Network. Pleased to be joined once again by Kyle. Qualifying underway as we speak for tonight's 26-lap event at virtual Sebring on the iRacing platform. What an exciting couple of weeks it's been so far. And maybe the place to start is with the birthday boy, Alex Palou, who was a race winner the last time we were turning left and right on iRacing. Pretty fast in practice so far as well. I think he's one to keep an eye on here tonight.
Yeah, happy birthday. Happy 24th birthday to Alex Palou, the driver of the number 10 from Chip Ganassi Racing. And Ryan, we of course have to talk about just all the differences in this 2021 INDYCAR iRacing Challenge. It really does mimic the real NTT INDYCAR series. We started at a very smooth course up in Montreal, smooth road course, then headed to a short oval down in Miami, and now here we are in Sebring, a very road course that provides a whole different challenge of its own.
No question, and it was Alex Palou who conquered the road course at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in round number 1. Round 2, though, belonged to Sage Karam, and it came down to the wire. He had to make that virtual fuel last an extra lap. He did it in one fewer pit stop than many of us were anticipating.
Yeah, and only really a handful of drivers made it on that one pit stop, which was quite impressive. Enzo Fittipaldi, though, he opted for those extra pit stops. He led most of the way, so we can't forget about him this week. Also charged from 12th all the way up to 3rd in the closing 20 laps, which is certainly impressive.
No question about that. Well, not only are we iRacing with the NTT INDYCAR Series, but look at this. Just a couple of weeks from now, the Honda Indy Grand Prix of Alabama, April 18th in Birmingham. Cannot wait to get the 2021 NTT INDYCAR Series kicked off, and hard to imagine a better venue. If you can't do the traditional start at St. Petersburg, gotta love going to Barber Motorsports Park.
Ryan, you say a couple weeks, I say 17 days. Because to me, that sounds a lot shorter period than a couple weeks. I am so excited. I love the Augusta of racetracks. You see that iconic big spider there. And of course, all those statues all around the course that Mr. Barber enjoys throughout the years. I love seeing those as well.
It's a unique place, eclectic to say the least. Also unique, Sebring International Raceway. Let's take a look at this racetrack. It is a 17-mile course built on the old Hendricks Field Air Base that trained B-24 bomber pilots back in World War II. Let's take a look around this racetrack. Turn 1, fast and blind, a difficult way to get this race started. That leads to the left-right complex, turns 2, 3, 4, 5, then to turn 6, Big Bend, which spits you out on the straightaway, heading to one of the premier passing zones on this racetrack, turn 7, the hairpin. Down to first gear there, then out onto Fangio, the 8-9 portion of the track. That leads to turn 10, another good passing opportunity there. Then the bends at 11 and 12, up to 13 at Tower Corner, up the Bishop Bend to turns 15 and 16, which spits you out onto Ullman Straight and into the iconic Sunset Turn number 17. Bumpy, blind, at the wrong time of day. You're staring right into the sun as well. It's tested many of the best in motorsports over the years. Test our iRacers here tonight. A great venue, no question about it. For the NTT INDYCAR Series, we've seen big-time sports car racing here in the past. We've seen Formula One here going back to the early days as well. And now the NTT INDYCAR Series is part of the INDYCAR iRacing Challenge. And one of the drivers to answer the bell is this man, Robert Wickens. Great to have him here with us for round 3.
And he will be driving with hand controls, Ryan. That's something that for those last couple of years, he joined us for the 2020 INDYCAR iRacing Challenge with a pole and a best finish of 5th at Motegi. Always good to see that number 6 from Aaron McLaren SP back on track with Robert Wickens in the driver's seat. Of course, now serves as a driver coach for Pato Award and Felix Rosenquist. Good to have him back with us for this final round, Ryan.
It's a really great story, of course, following the difficult accident at Pocono Raceway back in 2018, but Robert Wickens finding ways to stay involved in the motorsports world, including here on iRacing. And if this looks like a lot of fun to you, well, you can be a part of the mix as well. Log on to iRacing.com today to start your iRacing career. They've got discounts for new members to sign up. Lots of great IndyCar content, many of the tracks that the NTT IndyCar Series visits, and a whole lot more. So check that out, iRacing.com. Well, Katie, qualifying is wrapping up, and we mentioned the birthday boy Alex Palou. With a few seconds left in qualifying, he sits on provisional pole right now, but the youngster, Braden Eves, representing the road to Indy, he's been fast in the build-up, just 7 thousandths of a second behind. Right now, slated to line up on the outside of the front row. It's an interesting mix, it would appear, at the front of this field.
Braden Eves has really been impressive all of these 3 weeks. Ryan, he started with the second of 5th in Miami. Those, of course, where he was in the 17 for the road to Indy. This week, though, he's with Meyer Shank Racing in that iconic pink number 60 for Meyer Shank. And this is a really interesting story. Braden Eves, currently racing in the road to Indy, actually wrote a letter. Ryan wrote it out. He didn't email it. He didn't text him. He wrote Mike Shank a letter asking for his support. They're from the same hometown, went to the same high school. And well, that, of course, as you can see, turned into a relationship for the road to Indy driver as he hops in the number 60 this week.
Mike, of course, not just a team owner, but a strong driver in his own right back in the day before transitioning into ownership, and a great mentor to have. So kudos to young Braden Eves for doing his best to build that relationship. Who knows where that can lead? At least for tonight, he's in one of Mike's Indy, albeit a virtual IndyCar here tonight. But it's been great seeing the road to Indy involvement in the IndyCar iRacing Challenge. Braden's been a stalwart, but we've got Nikita Lastoshkin once again back with here tonight. We've seen Enzo Fittipaldi, who you mentioned. He's going to be in the road to Indy this year. And on down the list, Benjamin Peterson, who was very fast in practice, didn't get perhaps the qualifying effort he was looking for. We'll take a look at the grid here in a moment. But the road to Indy really well represented. And Katie, it's a great chance to now go toe-to-toe with some of the same drivers you aspire to race against in the... Here is the starting grid, and it is Alex Palou on pole for Chip Ganassi Racing. The youngster you were talking, Braden Eves, will start alongside.
Good to see the birthday boy on pole tonight. Sage Karam, last week's winner, will start on the inside of the second row alongside Enzo Fittipaldi, another young gun.
And look away from Sage Karam in any of these iRacing events. Same goes for both guys, R.C. Peterson and Scott Mclaughlin, both big-time sim racers on the iRacing platform. They'll share row 3.
Will Power will start on the inside of row 4 alongside the road to Indy driver in the number 17 this week. That's Benjamin Peterson.
Benjamin Peterson hailing from Copenhagen, Denmark. James Davison in the Dale Coyne Racing with Rick Ware Racing entry. We'll have 100 and Series champion Simon Pagenaud alongside in row number 5.
And in row number 6, Robert Wickens back with us this weekend. He'll alongside the 21 of Nikita Lastoshkin.
And Nikita joining up with Carpenter Racing, as did back at Montreal. Dalton Kellett and Connor Daly, they'll share row 7. Connor was hoping we'd be headed to Kentucky this week. Didn't get his wish. And Marcus Ericsson will start in the 15th position.
Wait a second. You didn't call him what you called him last week. What's that mullet's name?
It's a power mullet. He's certainly hoping to channel some power. He's got a long way to go. It was funny, we were trying to chat with him last week, and that was about the time the fan vote of which track we'd be headed to for the finale came up. And yeah, he was hoping we'd go to Kentucky. I don't think he was thrilled to see Sebring, despite the fact he's had some good runs, both in sports cars and the junior formula here at this track.
Well, he did do extremely well last week in Miami in that short oval, came home with the second place following the fuel strategy of Sage Karam with just one pit stop, stretching it all the way to the end there in Miami. He certainly does have his work cut out for him charging from the back this week, though, Ryan.
Well, let's take a look at those cars in the front, and not a lot of surprises. Some of the heavy hitters from the sim racing world. Sage Karam in the mix. Alex Palou, we saw how capable he is back in Montreal as the field makes its way around on the pace lap. What do you think? Does anyone in this field have anything for Alex Palou after the domination that he displayed in round 1 in Montreal?
I think Enzo Fittipaldi does, starting on the outside of the second row, and he is going to want revenge from last week. He certainly felt like that win was his, charging all the way from 12th to 3rd in those final 20 laps. We'll see what he has for Alex this week.
And so, of course, the brother of Pietro Fittipaldi, who I believe filled that same seat in round 1 of the championship, but it's been all Enzo the last couple of weeks, and he's got the bragging rights in the family based on that great performance at Homestead Miami Speedway last week. But still, a lot to be decided here in this final race of the INDYCAR iRacing Challenge.
His brother Pietro was back in an IndyCar just yesterday, testing at Texas Motor Speedway with Dale Coyne Racing with Rick Ware Racing. That's a tongue twister. So it's good to see Pietro back in an IndyCar for the first time since 2018.
That's exactly right. He'll be running the oval portion of the schedule that Romain Grosjean will not be taking part in this year. Romain was actually testing his real IndyCar right here at Sebring, and some travel delays prevented him from being a part of this race. He certainly intended to be with us, but we understand the way that the travel gods can smile or not upon you as fortune dictates. So no Romain Grosjean in the field here this week. Lights are off on the iRacing pace truck. This is the Ullman Straight, named for Alec Ullman. It was his idea to bring motorsports to Sebring, to convert the old airfield into a racetrack, and what an inspired decision that proved to be. The field in great alignment, Katie. We are one corner away from getting this race started.
And the detail that you speak of Sebring, Ryan, it certainly sounds like you spent a lot of time turning laps in your racing simulator.
Indeed, I have. Didn't get to run the iRacing 12 hours last weekend, but certainly something I've done in the past. These drivers will try and tackle it, though, in an IndyCar. Around Sunset Bend they come. The green flag waves, and we are racing. Great jump from Alex Palou in the Chip Ganassi Racing entry from pole. And now the field trying to get into alignment. It looks like a move from Enzo Fittipaldi from fourth on the grid to the inside. He's racing with Braden Eves for second. Sage Karam got a great jump, already up to P2. Eves holding on to P3.
And who it is, all the usual suspects up front, and Alex Palou in the lead, followed by Sage Karam, Braden Eves, Enzo Fittipaldi, and R.C. Enerson. If none of these names sound familiar to you, it's because they are all very young stars, up-and-coming stars. The NTT IndyCar Series and the Road to Indy, get to know their names well. They will be stars in the IndyCar Series in just a short time.
How about this start from Sage Karam? As experienced on iRacing as any driver in this field, he has made the pass on Alex Palou and leads this field now. As we continue on the opening lap, that car's still a little bit twitchy on the cold tires, but H. Karam aggressive early. It looks like Braden Eves did manage to hold off the charge from Enzo Fittipaldi. Still runs in third, ahead of Fittipaldi in fourth, and R.C. Enerson in the Top Gun Racing entry. A real team we expect to see make its debut at the Indianapolis 500. He runs fifth, another strong showing in the IndyCar iRacing Challenge.
Ryan, for those that aren't very familiar with iRacing, they may say, well, you just said cold tires. That sounds odd. There's no tires in virtual racing. But Ryan, as an experienced iRacing simulator driver, how can you feel the differences in those cold versus hot tires?
I'll tell you what, you definitely feel them. You'll feel it right here through this bumpy Sunset Bend. It's side by side for the lead, and Alex Palou on the outside there got caught out by one of the bumps. We've got a little further back. That's Robert Wickens in the wall. Also involved is, Benjamin Peterson. And here we go again at the front of the field. It's now Eves on the attack, trying to pounce on Palou. He had been trying to take the lead back, a little side-to-side contact there, and Eves runs wide. I think Braden Eves ended up in the tire bearer. He did get back on track towards the back of this shot, but lost several positions due to that contact going wheel to wheel in a very difficult part of the racetrack to try and pull that off.
And it looks like Robert Wickens has also had to head to pit lane for possibly a repair to his number 6 for Aero McLaren SP. We'll see if he'll head back out on track. Meanwhile, Benjamin Peterson also involved in that incident with Robert Wickens back in 14.
Yeah, that's a real shame. Robert Wickens definitely got in the wall. It is worth noting there are 2 fast repairs available for these drivers, and if you're new to iRacing, what that means, you still have to come down pit lane. Time lost, you still lose, but instead of the amount of time it would normally take to enact the repairs, which is simulated in iRacing, it's done instantaneously, and that's to allow these guys to get back out there and continue the fight if something goes wrong early on, just like we saw for Robert Wickens. It does appear he has left the pit lane after those repairs, but he's quite a ways down the order here as we've now completed nearly 2 laps at Sebring in our 26th lap.
Yeah, and of course there will be a pit stop. We expect those pit stops to come anywhere between laps 10 and lap 15 for these IndyCar iRacing drivers.
I think we're going to get a look at what happened to Robert Wickens here in just a moment. This was through Sunset Bend. Here they come down the Ullman Straight. You see Pagano pulling out of line just ahead of Robert Wickens right here in the Aero McLaren SP car. A little bit of contact there, and you see the left front damage, and then hard into the outside wall.
Such a shame for Robert Wickens. This is the first time that he's able able to join us in this 2021 INDYCAR iRacing Challenge. We'll see if he can work back up through the field. Meanwhile, it looks like Braden Eves is back on course trying to work his way back up through the field, currently running in 6th. That looks like Peterson just behind him, and just ahead of Braden Eves is the Team Penske driver of Scott Mclaughlin.
Yeah, Scott Mclaughlin mentioned, very active on iRacing, has done several top split Indy 500s on iRacing over the years, and is just as good turning left and right as you would expect as he is on the ovals in iRacing, with a road racing background in Australian supercars. This is Enzo Fittipaldi, who has impressed us so much. He was great on the oval at Homestead and has not beat, currently running in podium contention with R.C. Enerson breathing down his neck. Below, just up ahead of Fittipaldi, running in 2nd, while Sage Karam has already built a lead of 1.7 seconds.
And it's good to see the number 52 tied to the number 75. That's Enzo Fittipaldi and R.C. Enerson. We saw some great battles between those two last week. Instead, Miami. We'll see if we can get some great battles with those two once again this week. Enzo running in 3rd, R.C. Enerson working for that podium position in 4th.
Look at these cars porpoising bumps in turn 17. Every time anyone goes and races at Sebring, the uninitiated will ask, well, why don't they repave the place? But man, that's
part of the fun.
You would get a full-scale rebellion, I think, from motorsports fans and aficionados of the 12-hour in particular. The bumps are as part of this racetrack as you'll find around the race course.
Was quite impressive in his debut with Dale Racing just a few years ago at Mid-Ohio. He caught many teams' attention, and he still has a lot of track time, Ryan. He and his family own the Lucas Oil Racing School, so he spends a lot of time traveling across the country and working with young drivers on those tracks as well.
Exactly, and he is a Floridian, so he does know this track. I know that he's raced here a handful of times in USF 2000 back in 2013. He raced here in Cooper Tire Winterfest competition. Somebody runs a little bit wide. I'm not sure who that is at the back of the shot there. I had a couple other starts in the 2012 F2000 championship season here at Sebring. So trying to use that to his advantage. We take a look here at Robert Wickens and Katie to his advantage. We take a look here at Robert Wickens and Katie. You mentioned it earlier, racing with hand controls. Amazing to watch him at work. Robert's natural environment, driving a race car. Great to have him as part of the INDYCAR iRacing Challenge.
Man, Ryan, I get goose every time I see Robert challenging himself to do something different. His recovery in itself was absolutely incredible, and he continues to challenge his mind and his body to achieve new things. We've seen videos of him walking, which of course always send chills down my spine. I just saw on social media today that he and his wife Carly are building a handicap accessible home here within the Indianapolis area, so it's good that they have made Indianapolis their home. Robert Wickens still, of course, serving as a driver coach for Aaron McLaren SP, as we see some troubles for the 22 of Simon Pagenaud.
Yeah, troubles for sure. Major right front damage on the Menards machine from Team Penske. Not sure what led to that damage. Last check, Pagenaud was running a little bit further down the order. He has now been shuffled all the way to 15th. Following that incident, he can reset that car if he can't drive it back to the pits and get that fast repair and hopefully rejoin the race.
We do have a camera on Simon Pagenaud right now via Zoom, and it looks like he's taking gloves off, messing with his keyboard, hopefully doing that fast reset to get that 22 back out on track.
I think we got a replay of what befell Simon Pagenaud. Let's take a look here. This is the front straightaway into turn 1. Difficult corner because it is blind on turn-in. Able to get through that cleanly, however.
Looks like Marcus Ericsson and Nikita Lastoshkin just behind him. And it is into the tire barriers for that right front damage from Simon Pagenaud.
Yep, that's turn 3, just a little bit of a bobble. And that car into the tire barriers, suffered some significant damage. And for the moment, at least, Simon Pagenaud sitting in pit lane. Back to the battle for the 2nd position. Now we drop back a little bit further and go on board. This is Dalton Kellett at the moment, racing in 12th. He's running behind Benjamin Peterson, who had we hear it's Scott Mclaughlin, chasing Braden Eves. Currently, this is the fight for the 5th position, down into the hairpin, slowest corner on the racetrack. Listen to him work his way back through the gears, through Fangio, named for the great Formula One driver Juan Manuel Fangio. Down here into turn 10. Now the bend to the left, Collier curve. Quick jink to the right at turn 12, then turn 13, Tower Bend, really tricky place, trying to get back to power. You can see visually the different surfaces on this racetrack, and doing a little research prior to this, of the 3.4 miles around Sebring Raceway, just over 3 of them are asphalt. The other portion of it is concrete, and all of that is modeled in iRacing. The grip level varies depending on what surface you're on, just like you would in the real world.
That certainly presents a great challenge for these NTT IndyCar Series drivers. Like we mentioned, they're used to racing around Sebring, but only on that 1.7 mile course. So Ryan, how can it be challenging to adjust not only to those different surfaces, but also to really a completely different course, all in the same course that you're used to?
Yeah, if you've not driven the full course before, the short course is what it sounds like, definitely shorter. That's so much by NTT IndyCar Series teams to test in preparation for the street courses, because it does help to simulate some of the fuel encounter on a street circuit. But you're right. I mean, if this is uncharted territory for you, you're definitely trying to find different pieces around the track that you might not be comfortable with, trying to feel out that grip level. It does vary. Here is Dalton Kellett. Now we take a look at the Canadian driver, driving with his normal sim rig once again after using a homemade one last week. If you missed it, it's an incredible story. He built his own steering wheel out of recycled materials primarily, and he's an engineering degree holder, really bright guy. Amazing what he was able to do with that last week at Homestead.
Yeah, and he did that in partnership with a STEM foundation, so kids could use that as a prototype to build their own steering wheel, because really they lost access to a lot of those STEM classes and STEM capabilities throughout this COVID-19 pandemic. But because of Dalton and his help, he gave them those tools to do it at home. It's like with a little help from Yoda, baby Yoda.
You take all the help you can get. At the moment, Dalton is running back in 12th, trying to chase down Benjamin Peterson. Your top 5 as they run: Sage Karam by 1.8 seconds over Alex Palou, Enzo Fittipaldi, R.C. Enerson, and Braden Eves, your top 5. Scott McLaughlin running 6th. That group all within 5 seconds of one another. James Davison a further 0.4 of a second back in 7th. Power Marcus Ericsson and Nikita Lastoshkin currently running in 10th. Let's jump to the front of the field. We'll be seeing in a moment Alex Palou plying his trade. And Katie, you mentioned it earlier, a special day for the young Spaniard.
Happy birthday, Alex. I will spare you the pain of us singing to you, but it is Alex 24th. And I did see a fun little exchange earlier this week between Alex Palou and Tony Kanaan. Alex had hopped on iRacing, and he noticed that someone else was in the number 10 for Chip Ganassi Racing. Well, that someone else just so happened to be Tony Kanaan. And Alex didn't know that Tony Kanaan used to be the driver of the number 10, because Alex has been a part of the NTT IndyCar Series. Tony has been the driver of the number 14 for AJ Foyt Racing, but of course Tony Kanaan back with Chip Ganassi Racing this year, driving the ovals in partnership with Jimmy Johnson in the number 48 for Carvana this season. So once again, happy birthday, Alex Palou, 24 this year. You can see the concentration on his face as he works to chase down Sage Karam. Those two each already a winner in this 2021 IndyCar iRacing Challenge.
And last year, Alex Palou driving for Dale Coyne Racing with Team Go, coming to the NTT IndyCar Series from Super Formula in Japan. I think with a lot of question marks around him, we just weren't sure what fact. Finished 16th in points, but I don't think that necessarily speaks to just how impressive he was. And to illustrate that point, it was Chip Ganassi that gave him the call.
Yes.
To drive for him here in year number 2 of his IndyCar career. And a driver who would love to be in the NTT IndyCar Series one day, Nikita Lastoshkin. You see him right there. The very colorful backdrop we saw back in week 1 in Montreal. I don't know how that's not distracted Nikita, but he keeps that concentration level. Currently running 9th with Indy 500 winner and series champion Will Power up ahead. That's who he's trying to chase down.
And I love Nikita's story. He moved to the U.S. at just 16 years old by himself to L.A. from Russia, because he loved racing, wanted to figure out how to get involved, got himself involved in the road to Indy. This year, he'll be racing Indy Lights with HMD Motorsports. Of course, he did join us in Montreal, like you said, a 10th place finish. So good to have Nikita with us with Ed Carpenter Racing this week.
The 30-year-old born in Moscow, Russia, but has made the U.S. home, as you mentioned, for quite some time. Very early in his IndyCar, or open wheel career here in the States, I should say, he did make 5 starts here at Sebring Raceway in an F2000 car. Not sure how applicable that is to driving an IndyCar around this track in iRacing, but nevertheless, you'll take whatever advantage you can get. This is a great fight we've got on our hands here with Mclaughlin right now in the PPG entry from Team Penske, holding off the pink AutoNation car that is driven by Braden Eves here this week. Right behind James Davison, who was very impressive last week at Homestead. He's lying in wait, sizing these two up for an opportunity.
Yeah, and once again, I just want to feature these young drivers that we have joining us for this 2021 IndyCar iRacing Challenge. Eves, so impressive throughout his time in this IndyCar iRacing Challenge, a 2nd in Montreal, a 5th last week in Homestead, Miami. He has been running up front all season long with us, and great to have him with us. He'll be running Indy Lights this year with exclusive Autosport, and of course, I'm sure Mike Shank has his eye on him as well.
No question that he will. As you mentioned earlier, went to the same high school in the same town in Ohio. Relationship there. Good mentor to have and a good connection to have if you aspire to race in the NTT IndyCar series.
You know, I think Mike Shank really has proven that he values those relationships so much. He and Jack Harvey came to the Indianapolis 500. As you see, James Davison working hard on Braden Eves for that pass. It looks like James Davison will make that pass stick for the 6th place position. But right back to Quick and Jack Harvey. Of course, Jack Harvey has stuck with Mike Shank for the past several years, so Mike Shank really valuing those special relationships, Ryan.
Yeah, big expectations for Jack Harvey this year. This is Marcus Ericsson with an issue. That is coming onto the Ullman Straight at Le Mans Curve. Turn 16, if you prefer the turn number. And he's able to keep it pointed in the right direction without hitting anything, so did lose some time. Marcus right now running back into 13th position. This battle is not, well, maybe I spoke too soon because Marcus has made his way down pit lane. It is possible, though, that we are in that pit window, so we'll keep an eye on that as Davison makes the move, or at least he holds off a challenge from Braden Eves, who lost that position a moment ago, but sure would like it back.
And I did just receive a note from the folks over at AJ Foyt Racing. Unfortunately, Dalton Kellett's internet has dropped out, so he will finish today's race in 15th, this final round of the IndyCar iRacing Challenge.
And we hate to hear that. Dalton stepping up to a full season in the NTT IndyCar Series for 2021 after running a select calendar last year. Graduate of the Road to Indy program, very experienced in Indy Lights before making the jump. What he can do in year 2, paired for the full season with Sebastian Bourdais, and he'll have Charlie Kimball for the Indianapolis 500 as a 3rd teammate with AJ Foyt. And tell you what, we've been hearing some rumors about a 4th AJ Foyt car for the Indy 500. How exciting might that be?
Yeah, I'm hearing rumors of a lot of additions of cars to teams for this year's Indianapolis 500, which of course is great to hear after the 2020 season, which we made it through. Great to see so many new drivers joining us, new teams joining us. We got Top Gun Racing joining us this year. That's a 75 of RC, and of course Beretta Autosport coming with an all-female team. That driver Simona Di Silvestro. Other names that have come up that are definitely joining us this year: Juan Montoya, Elio Castroneves. Of course, some big names back at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
And looking beyond just Indianapolis, look at the rookie class. Scott McLaughlin running the full season, but then you throw in Romain Grosjean and Jimmy Johnson on the ovals, and you're talking about possibly the greatest to ever do it in Supercar, possibly the greatest to ever do it in NASCAR, and a driver with extensive Formula One experience. It's going to be fascinating to see that rookie class here in 2021. This might be the opening gambit of the pit stop sequence. Alex Palou comes in on lap number 12, pitting from podium contention. Our leader still is this man, Sage Karam, last week's winner. His gap to Enzo Fittipaldi now 1.6 seconds, shrunk slightly over the last several laps as we close in on the halfway mark of this 26-lap event, but still firmly in control in the Andretti Autosport entry. And that's a look at Sage hard at work. You can see how difficult this Sebring circuit is.
And of course, Sage, the king of saving fuel. We saw that last week at Homestead, Miami. We'll see how that got this week at Sebring. If he can stretch that fuel and play some fuel mileage games here.
Look at those hands. Look how he's playing pitch and catch with this car. Here they come into tower curve. Not a lot of runoff room. You can use that curve there, but it gets awfully dusty. If you overstep those bounds, it can send you around in a hurry. This is a very fast part of the track. Climbs all over the curb on the inside. Same here with the left-hander. Now onto the Ullman straight. Crucial corner to get the power down and get that big jump onto turn 17, as this is one of the longest straightaways here at Sebring International.
Even though it is virtual, that sound is pretty nice. I can't wait to hear it in real life in just 17 days as we see RC Enerson making that pass for second on Enzo Fittipaldi.
Move from RC Enerson, who has been stalking Enzo Fittipaldi the last several laps. It looks like we do have Sage Karam coming to pit lane. We also have Braden Eves in the Meyer Shank Racing entry coming to the... That makes this now the battle for the lead as they run, with RC Enerson now jumping to the front, out ahead of Enzo Fittipaldi. But this is not done yet. Enzo might have lost that spot. He's got designs on taking it back.
Yeah, this is a great battle between those two. And also a battle we saw last week at Homestead, Miami. So it looks like that rivalry has carried over into this week.
No question about it. We've seen them go side by side plenty, and looking to see if that might continue. This is coming up to another one of those passing opportunities. Tower turn. If Enzo can get close enough, but it does look like RC was a little bit stronger there through the hairpin, able to build that gap once again, out over a half of a second. That gives him the breathing room he needs now to just forward and try and build that gap, turn in some fast laps prior to the pit stop.
It looks like Sage Karam, Alex Below, and Braden Eves have now cycled back out into the field. Sage Karam in 7th, Alex Below in 8th, and Braden Eves in 9th. It looks like once the rest of the field pits, those will be your top 3 contenders.
All right. Pit stops were so crucial last week at Homestead. We'll see if that is true here in week 3 as well. Let's go back to that battle we saw here between Enerson and Fittipaldi. This is how RC got it done. Down the Ullman straight in the slipstream. Takes a peek to the inside. And he got that done even before they got to the corner. Now watch them over these bumps. This is the bumpiest turn on the track. You can see even in the center, those cars buffeting around. And here comes Fittipaldi, as we saw, trying to come back around the outside on the left of the screen and on the right. These two have broken off that battle. They come to pit lane. So now all eyes on Sage Karam as he tries to put down some fast laps and hopefully retain that lead when the pit stop cycle. I say hopefully from his perspective. Enzo Fittipaldi still out on track with Scott McLaughlin in tow. They're stretching that fuel mileage a little bit, going a bit further than the others. Sage Karam, our timing screen shows as still in the pit lane. Hopefully that's not anything abnormal. But certainly a story to keep an eye on if that does indeed be the case. I think we got a replay of something coming. And nevertheless, it's still Enzo Fittipaldi out in front of Scott McLaughlin by a second. Those two the leaders as they run, but still owing us pit stop. They are the last two in this field to come to pit lane. They have not done so yet. That's Marcus Ericsson, third car in that shot. But he is down the order, one lap down, running in 11th. We saw his issues a little bit earlier on. The brief spin, then came to the pits. And now here come our leaders. They've pushed it as far as they feel comfortable. And Enzo Fittipaldi and Scott McLaughlin now will come to the attention of their virtual pit crews.
And was that Robert Wickens I also saw sitting on pit lane? So it seems like Robert Wickens has encountered encountered some issues as well with who coming to pit lane, though. That means it's the driver of the number 10 and the birthday boy back out front. That's Alex Pillow.
Yeah, it looks that way. Sage Karam appears to be out of this race, disconnected at this point based on what we're seeing on timing and scoring. He was one that had that camera shooting back at him, and that appears to have disconnected as well. So reading between the lines, last week's winner, Sage Karam, looked like he will be a race winner in week number 3, and the beneficiary clearly race 1 winner of the iRacing INDYCAR Challenge, Alex Pillow.
I think that's something we can all relate to, right? Internet issues.
This year especially.
Yes, during 2020 and 2021, I think that's something we can all relate to. Internet issues dropping out on us, Zoom not working. Here we are.
Yes, happens to the race car drivers amongst us too. It would have. So sorry to see that. What a great run Sage Karam was having, dominated this race. Qualified 4th, it's worth noting, was up and right away, and then tracked down Pillow to take the lead of this race and sprinted out to a sizable advantage from there, but something has gone amiss, and that leaves us now with 13 cars still circulating, led by Alex Pillow. RC Enerson has shuffled up to 2nd on timing and scoring. Scott Mclaughlin as 3rd place, followed by Braden Eves and Enzo Fittipaldi. A pretty strong recovery, it must be said, for Braden Eves, who got punted, it appeared. Maybe punted is too strong, but had some contact that sent him off track and knocked him out of contention, and he's in this shot, 4th car in line, and right behind Scott Mclaughlin.
Yeah, and Alex Pillow looks like has pulled out to a pretty sizable lead, just over 2-second lead right now over the number 75 from Topting. That's RC Enerson, followed very closely by Scott Mclaughlin and Braden Eves. And not too far behind Braden Eves, of course, is the almost winner from last week at Homestead Miami Speedway, Enzo Fittipaldi, looking for revenge. He nearly won last week, but after having to pit for his 2nd stop of the day, Sage Karam able to stretch it out on just 1. Sage able to take that win.
But Enzo was the furthest up the running order of those that 2nd pit stop, and still was able to get on the podium even in spite of that. This, though, is the battle to focus on. Mclaughlin has 3rd. Braden Eves would desperately like to take it. How about this for the young Road to Indy driver, battling it out with one of the greatest Australian, New Zealand, depending on how you look at it, racing an Australian series, a New Zealand license for Scott Mclaughlin, one of the best to ever do it in Aussie supercars, just up the road, and this is a real chance to test yourself as a young race car driver.
You know, we've seen some great battles this evening in the final round of this 2021 INDYCAR iRacing Challenge. One of those has been between Scott Mclaughlin and Braden Eves, battling for that final podium position. Braden working hard on that rookie this year.
Yes, he will be the lone rookie to contest the full season, both road courses and ovals. I suppose you could throw street courses into the mix if you like to separate that from the road courses. So a full slate for Scott Mclaughlin in 2021, and I think there will be a lot tippity and eyes down under in Australia and New Zealand, keeping close tabs on how he fares. He won everything you could win in Aussie supercars, racing for the captain, I might add, in partnership with the legendary Dick Johnson, legend of supercar racing in Australia. What a potent combination that proved to be for so many years. That partnership, throw in a driver of Scott's caliber, and they just won race after race, championship after championship, to the States in search of a new challenge. And you couldn't have bitten off a bigger challenge. I'm not sure the depth of talent has been greater in the NTT IndyCar Series, possibly ever, certainly in decades. It's a real chance to go into the deep end and test yourself against some of the best to drive open wheel cars today.
And this week, running the PPG paint scheme on the number 3 for Team Penske. Talk about pressure, because he will be running that iconic yellow submarine. The number 3 that we have watched for so many years will be driven by Scott McLaughlin this year. I'm sure Elio Castroneves to get used to that. He'll be in the number 06 this year for Meyer Shank Racing.
So Alex Pillow, RC Enerson, Scott McLaughlin, your top 3. They are now separated by a couple of seconds each. It's 2.7 from Pillow to Enerson, then 1.2 from Enerson to McLaughlin. Then you've got Braden Eves, less than a second behind. Enzo Fittipaldi has now dropped off to the tune of 2.5 seconds behind Braden Eves. He runs in 5th. been James Davison, Will Power, Benjamin Peterson, Nikita Lastoshkin, and Connor Daly has cracked the top 10 for Ed Carpenter Racing. Back to the Yellow Submarine. When you think of that, who do you think of? Do you think of the Yellow Submarine that we've had the
Yellow.
last couple of years with Helio Castroneves, possibly Rick Mears, possibly Johnny Rutherford? I mean, there's several different choices. Which one's the iconic Yellow Submarine to you?
Oh, I mean Rick Mears, but because I've covered Elio's time in the Yellow Submarine, I instantly think of Elio.
I think, for me, I go back to the Chaparral, the Johnny Rutherford-driven cars. We have somebody off track there. That might be Marcus Ericsson again, and it appears to be. I guess that's the OG of the Yellow Submarines, right? And the Chaparral brand, Dean Hall, so pivotal in the development of open-wheel cars and ground effects in particular, but very adept in sports car design as well, including a lot of success at Sebring over the years. So there's a lot of different things that you go back to, and one of the great things about a paint scheme like that is no matter when you grew up, no matter when you were watching, you've got a Yellow Submarine that you can be drawn to, at least over the last 30, 40 years.
And that's like that papaya orange with their McLaren SP, right? Well, speaking of some race fans, here's one. This is Jasblade. He received an iRacing simulator back in November. It was part of his Make-A-Wish. Jasper battling leukemia right now. That iRacing simulator you saw there dropped off by none other than James Hinchcliffe, the Borg Warner Trophy, and a couple of 500 Festival Princesses. We spoke with Jasper earlier this evening. He said he does spend several nights a week on his iRacing simulator. So if you like to race against Jasper, maybe catch him one night this week on an iRacing simulator. Always remember you can head to iRacing.com too. We do have some discounts on memberships for you right now. You might also catch NTT IndyCar Series drivers, but congratulations to Jasper. We wish you well in your fight against leukemia.
Yeah, great to speak with him today. Certainly an upbeat young man, and we wish him the best in his iRacing endeavors as well. How cool is that to have your favorite IndyCar driver and the Borg Warner Trophy drop off your own iRacing sim rig?
Just any old Tuesday.
Well, great story and a great collaboration between the Make-A-Wish Foundation, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, IndyCar, James Hinchcliffe, Borg Warner. Everybody had to get together to make that dream come true, and that's what it's all about. Here we go. Battle for third on track with for 8 laps remaining. Scott McLaughlin, Braden Eves, Enzo Fittipaldi, the 3 protagonists in this battle. And R.C. Enerson, you can throw him into the mix. Actually, that's the better battle of the bunch. Just up from Scott McLaughlin, who is on a charge. They have cut into Alex Pallou's lead now, down under 2 seconds, and McLaughlin on the push to pass, slides up the inside. That's a tough place to get it done, but he does. McLaughlin to P2 for Team Penske.
I have a feeling that is going to be a move we'll see quite often this year within the NTT IndyCar Series, but R.C. Enerson looks like he's not going to let Scott get away too easily as he creeps up on the back end of that number 3.
And I mentioned the button, that of course being push to pass, and yes, even in iRacing, the NTT IndyCar Series cars have access to the extra boost from the push to pass systems. The Borg Warner turbos virtually spooling up just a little bit more to deliver about 40 extra horsepower, and it looked like Scott used that to his advantage. Looks like he still has 4 uses of the push to pass remaining. Alex Palou up in front, down to just 1. That could be a crucial thing to keep an eye on here in the final handful of laps, especially now that McLaughlin has gotten clear of R.C. Enerson and has clear track ahead to try and chase down the leader.
But R.C. Enerson still has 7 left, so I assume he'll use a few of those to catch back up to Scott McLaughlin, as it looks like he did just too far behind R.C. You see that pink car lurking just off into the distance. That's the 60 of Braden Eves. Meyer Shank this week. Of course, you can catch him in Indy Pro 2000 in the Road to Indy this year. He has 4 push to passes left. So as we come to these final 6 laps, a lot of drivers using all they can to get into those final podium positions.
Really interesting that in our top 4, you have all of the podium finishers from Montreal running in contention. So not a big surprise. I think we expected the usual suspects, right? Those that excel in iRacing and excel especially on the road and street courses. So Alex Palou, the race 1 winner, he is leading once again. Braden Eves finished second at Montreal. He's 4th here right now. Scott McLaughlin completed that podium in Montreal, and as we've seen, very much a contender for the race win here at Sebring.
And those handful of drivers kept it interesting for the past 3 weeks for us as we take another look at R.C. Enerson in that final podium position. There's the group of leaders that you'll be watching for these final 5 laps, Ryan.
Talking about iconic paint schemes, made mention to this, I think, on the broadcast last week, but this one just screams Johnny Lightning Special, the Al Unser livery that won 2 Indy 500s in a row. What a glorious paint scheme, and cool to see it in a modern IndyCar. I love it.
And this Top Gun Racing, based out of Brownsburg, just outside on the outskirts suburbs of the Indianapolis area, started by Bill Throckmorton and Gary Trout. They tried to make their debut in the 2020 Indianapolis 500. Of course, that was halted by the COVID-19 pandemic, hoping to get back on track with us at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the 2021 Indianapolis 500. Here's a high shot of Sebring International Raceway. You can see Palou up there, followed by Scott McLaughlin. And that final driver in your shot is that iconic paint scheme of the number 75 with R.C. Enerson.
The gap from McLaughlin to Palou is the one we're keeping an eye on, and it has been steadily dropping. In fact, just on this lap, McLaughlin take out a couple of tenths from Alex Palou's lead. So we could have a battle for the lead on our hands before this is said and done. And again, those two were racing with one another at Montreal, if memory serves. It'd be great to see a redux of that.
Yeah, and Alex Palou, as you mentioned, just one push to pass left. So if Scott McLaughlin does get up on the back end and close to that number 10, it will be hard for Alex Palou to defend because Scott McLaughlin still has 4 push to pass buttons left. R.C. Enerson with 6.
So 22 of 26 laps complete. Alex Palou leads Scott McLaughlin, but that lead, which was up 2.5 seconds, has been halved. Scott McLaughlin now just 1.25 seconds back. You can see it out the windscreen, out the aero screen of McLaughlin's NTT INDYCAR machine. PPG colors on the side ponds for Team Penske, trying to chase down Chip Ganassi Racing. Boy, I feel like that's been said before. The two dominant teams of the last couple of decades.
And this is one of my favorite shots throughout this IndyCar iRacing challenge because this really what it looks like within the cockpit of an IndyCar. This is not a view that you can, because you can actually see what's on the wheel. And that's not something teams let you see too often within the real IndyCar series, but a great view, just exactly what Scott McLaughlin is seeing right now.
Exactly so. This is effectively the Visor Cam. You can see the halo portion of the aero screen, that bar up in front, and drivers say you get used to it awfully quick. You kind of forget that it's there. That appears to be the case here in the sim as well, ever since it was implemented on the DW12 chassis. Here comes McLaughlin stalking his prey. Alex Palou now the lead down to just 8 tenths of a second, and that push to pass advantage really favoring Scott McLaughlin. Through Sunset and turn 17 to complete another lap. 23 of 26 in the books. This is a look back over the rear wing of McLaughlin. Now we swing forward. This is the chase. This is the fight for the top spot in the final event of the Indy Racing Challenge.
And with just 3 laps to go, as Scott McLaughlin closes that gap up to Alex Palou, the gap to R.C. Enerson continues to grow.
This is Big Ben sweeping right-handed corner. Sets up for the passing zone in the hairpin. This part of the track was modified in relatively recent years in the long history of this track. I guess it has been a bit of a while at this stage, but tightened that up somewhat. Still, though, incredibly challenging. Heavy braking zone into the slowest part of the track, now accelerating up here to turn 10.
And within just 1 lap, he already has cut 2 tenths off of that gap to Alex Palou, now down to just half a second behind him.
And crucially, still armed with 4 push to uses, while while Alex Below has just a single one.
And I do have an update on Sage Karam. From a friend that Sage did tweet. He unfortunately hit the wall. It does look like he is back out on track. We were questioning what happened to him earlier, and now we know the answer. So thank you to my friend Russ for sending that note.
Now I suspect, because that came right around the time he was making his pit stop, I do wonder if perhaps the tricky pit exit here at Sebring might have been the culprit. Here comes Mclaughlin on the attack in turn 17. Throws the car to the inside and has Pelot with the undercut side by side down the pit straight, headed to turn 1 with just a few laps remaining. What a move from Mclaughlin to take that car to the point, but Pelot not ready to relinquish it. To the outside of Mclaughlin he goes, now has to fall back in line.
I expect Alex will make some pretty bold moves to try to get that lead back from Scott Mclaughlin. Of course, the consequences for making bold moves in iRacing, not as they would be in the real NTT IndyCar series. Alex willing to take those bold moves on the number 3.
Pelot did not use his push to pass in defense. Mclaughlin burned through 2 of his remaining 4 in that overtake attempt. It paid off though. He's out in front and does have 1 extra push to pass as a buffer. On board with Alex Pelot, the battle for the lead with only a few laps remaining here at Sebring International Raceway, the final round of the INDYCAR iRacing Challenge. R.C. Enerson, 1.4 seconds back in third, was able to close in somewhat while these two were scrapping over the lead. Enzo Fittipaldi continues to impress, running in 4th. Braden Eves in 5th.
James Davison in 6th. Benjamin Peterson in 7th. Will Power not too far behind. And Nikita Lastoshkin, Connor Daly rounds out the top 10 for us right now.
Alex Pelot in the slipstream down the Alec Woman straight. This is where the move was made just 1 lap ago. Scott Mclaughlin pulled out at the last moment, slipped to the inside, and left Alex Pelot with no recourse by the time they got to turn 1. 25 laps now, working on lap 25 of 26. Oh, look at that, running a little bit wide in his pursuit. Alex Pelot able to keep the car under him. Kicked up a lot of dust there. Enerson has actually been closing in steadily on these two. Maybe he's got a little bit something extra in that Top Gun racing car. He's certainly there to pick up the pieces if anything were to go awry in this battle. But let's keep an eye on Pelot. Is he close enough to make a pass in the braking zone? Has to stay in line for now.
Trying everything he can to get around that number 3 PPG from Team Penske. I do expect to see this battle often on course this season, Ryan.
Now, certainly, that's what's expected of a driver for a team like Team Penske or Chip Ganassi Racing, showing off their talent here in the virtual world in the INDYCAR iRacing Challenge. Mclaughlin, Pelot, just like that. Just a couple laps remaining. Can Pelot get close enough? We saw Mclaughlin make a pass on Enerson through this part of the track going back about 10 minutes ago. And especially with the push-to-pass deficit, Pelot might have to surprise and try and go on the attack where Scott is not expecting it.
But he is running out of time to do that. Lap 25 of 26 is Scott Mclaughlin coming to the checkered flag.
Might be the white flag this time by, waiting for confirmation of that. But Mclaughlin out in front, drifts just a little bit wide, waiting to see. And it does look like the checkered flag. Oh, no, that was the white flag as Mclaughlin was moving to the inside to break toe. So Pelot, who still does have just over 3 miles to try get this done. Yep, white flag officially, timing and scoring. So sorry about fusion. Mclaughlin leading Alex Pelot, and R.C. Enerson, by the way, is now a half a second behind Pelot, so about equidistant to what the shot we're seeing right here. There it is, the top 3 running line to stern with half a lap remaining at Sebring. Mclaughlin still with 2 pushes to pass remaining. Pelot with 1, Enerson with 1, but not close enough to use them to any effect at this point.
Scott Mclaughlin, the winner of 2 rounds of the 2020 INDYCAR iRacing Challenge. He'll be our 3rd winner within 3 weeks of this 2021 season, keeping it interesting for us, Ryan.
If he can hang on, and Alex Palou and R.C. Enerson have other ideas, to say the least. It seems like McLaughlin's been able to pull a bit of a gap, but now it's Enerson, the driver, who looks like he is on the attack. Down the Ullman Straight for the final time. McLaughlin on cruise control out in front with 1 corner left to negotiate. Enerson in the slipstream trying to track down Alex Palou. Palou goes defensive to the inside. Will hold off. Challenge on corner entry. McLaughlin up ahead, exiting Sunset Bend with the checkered flag awaiting New Zealand's Scott Mclaughlin. Victory lane at Sebring International Raceway. Alex Palou holds off R.C. Enerson and will take second. Enerson completes the podium in 3rd. What a dramatic battle that was down to the wire. And some celebratory donuts here. Those aren't done just yet. Let's get back into this here with Nikita Lastoshkin right there, running in 6th. Enzo Fittipaldi slipped back to 7th. And just behind, it's Benjamin Peterson. This is for position 6th and 8th with 1 corner remaining.
Enzo Fittipaldi popping out. He's trying to get that 6th place position. Nikita tucking in just behind him. And that's Benjamin Peterson rounding out that group.
Doing it without, it appears, part of his front wing. So that's impressive stuff from Benjamin Peterson. Looks like Fittipaldi will hold off Lastoshkin to jump up a position. That was James Davison, who ahead of Enzo Fittipaldi, similar liveries. Sorry for that. Lastoshkin finishes in 7th. Benjamin Peterson comes home 8th as we look at Connor Daly in the Air Force colors for Ed Carpenter Racing. He drives in the 9th position, coming around to complete this race. One last corner for a former class podium result getter at the 12 Hours of Sebring, Connor Daly, across the line, and will take home the 9th finishing position. So, what a wild race that turned out to be. Look at the distance between second at the line, less than 1/10 of a second between Palou and Enerson, as Scott Mclaughlin picked up a long-awaited race win in the iRacing Challenge.
His 3rd win in 2 seasons of the INDYCAR iRacing Challenge, the 2020 winner of Barber and Indianapolis, the 2021 winner, of course, of Sebring, and the winner of round 1 here of the 2021 Challenge, and the birthday boy, Alex Palou, in 2nd. R.C. Enerson rounds out our podium, Ryan.
Great results for all of those names. Braden Neves, a good recovery. What might have been had there not been the contact early in the race for him. Still soldiers home to 4th with James Davison charging late to get up to 5th ahead of his teammate Enzo Fittipaldi. Nikita Lastoshkin slips back to 7th there in the final few laps. Benjamin Peterson in 8th. Connor Daly and Will Power completing the top 10. And then back to Robert Wickens in 11th. Marcus Ericsson, a trouble-filled race, I'm afraid to say, for him. Simon Pagino, Sage Karam, and Dalton Kellett, who was a victim of an internet connection gone awry, will take the 15th and final finishing position here tonight.
A great win by Scott Mclaughlin tonight. Certainly a hard-fought battle between he and Alex Palou. A very entertaining battle. Hopefully we will have a chance to talk to Scott here in just a few minutes. But season of this 2021 INDYCAR iRacing Challenge. Now it's time to go real racing here in just 17 days.
Yeah, can't wait to get the NTT INDYCAR Series started at Barber Motorsports Park just 17 days from now. April the 18th is race day, first race day of the year for the championship. And of course, coverage with our TV friends at NBC, but also the INDYCAR Radio Network will be there providing live coverage as well. Can't wait for that. And before we turn the page fully to the real world of racing, this INDYCAR iRacing Challenge, when it started last year, it filled a void. We were all missing our racing, and we were wondering, well, is there still a place for it even when racing resumes? And I think we've seen there is an appetite for big-time drivers and sim racing, and what a show they put on for us the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, several big names within the IndyCar Series, of course, joined us throughout this 2021 season and several new names. It's good to introduce to race fans through this platform of iRacing. Of course, Braden Eves, RC Enerson, Enzo Fittipaldi, Benjamin Peterson, Braden Eves, several of those names that NTT IndyCar Series fans will eventually become familiar with, but for now, they've become stars of this iRacing challenge.
Exactly so. Scott McLaughlin, the race winner here in race number 3. I think we're getting him lined up to chat to him in just a matter of moment. Katie, why don't we hear from our race winner?
Scott McLaughlin joining us all the way from Charlotte, North Carolina. Scott, the winner of 2 rounds last season and the winner of the final round this season. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a nice little win, that. I'm very surprised. But the PPG Chevy was good. The people behind the pit wall, I don't know who they were, but I was just talking to myself. But they were really good as well. But really proud of it. And yeah, I didn't think I was going to win tonight, so it was nice. I went long because I just wasn't confident on an older set of tyres, so I just went as long as I could on the tyres, pitted as late as I could, and short-filled it because I knew I was going to probably not use as much fuel, and it worked out pretty good. My track position was good, and I was able to chase down Alex there. But we've had 2 awesome battles, so it's really good fun.
Yeah, that was an incredible battle to watch between you and Alex as those laps wound down. What were you thinking as you made that pretty bold move on Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I was sort of thinking about showing the nose, but then instinct sort of got ahead of me, and I just went for it. So it was good. But big shout out to my Twitch chat, because they were telling me to tell them pass as soon as I could, because they were worried about the dirty air and all that sort of stuff. So thanks, Twitch chat.
Shout out to the race fans, right, for all the encouragement.
Absolutely.
You mentioned that pit strategy, kind of making your own calls. Is that something that you do in the real NTT IndyCar series?
Absolutely not. That's the one thing I don't do. So I make sure that I listen to my team. They can see more than I can, and even it's very hard doing that. But I learn doing stuff, like learn how to undercut people, or if I can save a bit more fuel in the slipstream. So all this sort of stuff, it's fun for us. It's great for our sponsors, but it's also, you've got to take it on board and use it as a learning thing, and that's certainly what I've done the last few weeks.
It was great to have you with us last year in St. Pete to close out the 2020 season, of course, but kicking off 2021 here in just a few weeks. What are you most looking forward to this season?
I'm looking forward to the ovals. After I tested yesterday at Texas Motor Speedway, it was so much fun. But really excited for the start of the year at Barber Motorsport Park and the PPG Chevy, and trying to get a good run. The first few tracks I know I've been to, so I really want to try and maximize that, because it's not going to be the same throughout the year. But yeah, really excited. The fans have been great throughout the whole time. Really excited about me being part of it all, and I can't thank them all enough for making us all feel welcome, and of course my team. So really excited to get on with it. I'm sick of driving my simulator for now. I just want to get into the real stuff.
Thank you so much for joining us for this 2021 IndyCar iRacing Challenge.
Yes.
Congratulations. We'll see you in just a few weeks. For now, move on to the guy you had a hard-fought battle with, Alex Palou, finishing in second for this final round. And first of all, before we get to racing, Alex, happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
It was good to see you joining us for all 3 rounds this year. Unfortunately, not getting the second win of this 2021 season. How hard was that battle between you and Scott?
I know. That race was really fun, to be honest. It was not the best present for me. I think I have to talk with Scott a bit more. But it was fun. It was really fun, to be honest. I think we did the pole, which I didn't really expect. I think we were all really close. I was with my Twitch chat as well, and we were just talking how to do the strategy and everything. I think it worked out really well. I don't know what happened with Sage. I was looking at the replay. I hope I didn't touch on him on his simulator, not on mine. But it was fun with Scott as well. I had no more tires. I think it was fun. It was fun for the sponsors, for the team. It was fun for the drivers, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
So you and Scott both mentioning interacting with your fans on your Twitch chat. Is that something that you do kind of any night of the week, hop on your simulator and interact with your fans through Twitch?
Yeah, and especially now on postseason and preseason. I do a lot. I started, I think, January, and it's really fun, to be honest. It's the best way to interact with fans, in my opinion. They just ask questions. I just try to answer them as happy as possible, and we do some races together. They help me with strategies. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work, but it's really fun. So I encourage everybody to join at some point. I'll try to do during the season as well. But yeah, I'm super excited to get started now.
Yeah, you'll be a little busy throughout this season joining Chip Ganassi Racing this year. Congratulations, Alex, on a podium this week. Happy birthday. We look forward to it, Barber.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
It sounds like we will now move on to our Barber race. Excuse me, I thought we were going to get a chance to talk to RC Enerson. It looks like we won't get a chance to catch up with him this week, but in just a few weeks, Ryan, April 18th, we are going to head down to Alabama to kick off this 2021 season.
Yeah, sounds like RC had other commitments and had to jet away, which we certainly understand, but man, that is a sight for sore eyes. We are closing in on the start of the NTT IndyCar Series season, April 18th at Barber Motorsports Park. The Augusta of race courses, like it's a perfect title for the place and a great way to get the season started. We've been waiting for so long. Can't wait to get the year underway here in just 17 days.
And we'll get it started with a bang because we then go from Barber to St. Pete, where we normally kick off the season, then right away to a doubleheader at Texas, all back-to-back weekends. So you will certainly get your fill of the NTT IndyCar Series. For now, thank you for joining us for this IndyCar iRacing Challenge. We'll see you down in Barber, right, Ryan?
Can't wait.